Hey, welcome, kids. Pull up a chair. It's time for our story for this week, and I'm so glad to be able to share it with you. First of all, do you like mystery books? I do. I grew up reading Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys, all of those, and I really enjoy mystery books. The thing about mystery books is that it's filled with all of these clues, and it doesn't all make sense to the very end. And then we have that aha moment when everything seems to come together, where all the clues come together and it makes sense. The Bible's kind of like that in some way. All throughout it, it gives us clues on who God is and all about God's plan. We need to study those clues so we know more about the mystery of God. Well, a lot of this happened with the disciples. They saw all the clues and they didn't come together till a little later where they had an aha moment. But our story today is called the Road to Emmaus, and I want us to look at this. It's in the book of Luke, which is in the New Testament, chapter 24, verses 13 through 35. That's Luke 24, 13 through 35. The story takes place right after Jesus rose from the dead, and he appeared to these disciples that were walking down the road, and they were actually walking to the town of Emmaus, which was a good 2 to 3 hour walk, about a 7 mile walk. It would be like us going from the church, BUMC, and walking down Franklin Road all the way to Cool Springs Galleria. That's a long way, but it would take us about 2 to 3 hours to do that. So listen as I read our story today about this long walk and what happened as they were walking. I'm going to be reading from our Deep Blue storybook, so I hope you'll follow along or listen. On Sunday, Cleopas and his friend were walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus. They were talking about what had happened in Jerusalem. As they walked, a stranger began walking with them. "What are you talking about?" asked the stranger. Cleopas said sadly, "We were talking about Jesus. Jesus was a man of God, and he was killed 3 days ago." Cleopas continued, "This morning the women went to Jesus' tomb, but Jesus was not there. Angels told them that Jesus is alive. Then Peter went to the tomb, and he did not find Jesus either." The stranger asked, "Why can't you believe what the prophets said?" And the stranger began explaining all of the things that were written by the prophets. When they got to Emmaus, Cleopas and his friend invited the stranger to stay and eat with them. When dinner was ready, they all sat down to eat. The stranger took the bread, broke it, and blessed it. Then he gave each person some bread. When the stranger did this, Cleopas and his friend recognized him. It was Jesus. As soon as they recognized Jesus, he disappeared. But the friends got up quickly. They returned to Jerusalem to find the other disciples, and they told the disciples, "The Lord really has risen." Wow. I wonder why Cleopas and his friends didn't recognize Jesus. Kind of reminds me of the sermon on Easter Sunday that we heard from Pastor Davis, when he said that when Mary went to the tomb, she didn't recognize Jesus when Jesus came up to her. She thought it was the gardener. But when Jesus called her name, Mary, that opened her eyes. I think the same thing happened here. When Jesus did something that they had seen Jesus do before, and that was to break the bread and bless it, they took that bread and realized they were with Jesus. They had an aha moment. Everything came together. Everything they read in the scriptures about the rising of Jesus in 3 days came true. All of those clues came together, and they were able to recognize Jesus, and they said, "The Lord has risen." Well, they couldn't wait to get back and tell the disciples, so I bet they ran that 7 miles, just about, ran it back to tell those disciples that Jesus had risen. You know, when we're feeling down, discouraged, sometimes that happens through these days, get a little frustrated, get a little sad, sometimes get a little mad. Sometimes it kind of feels like God is far away. But the truth is, Jesus is with us today. He never leaves our side. We may not always recognize him, but he is always there with us. Remember that as you break bread together with your family at meal times. Remember that as you're taking walks and see the beauty of creation around you. Remember that Jesus is there as you're talking to him in your prayers. Jesus is alive. Hallelujah. Well, that's the story. Thanks for letting me share it with you. We love you, and we sure hope to see you very soon.